Hey everybody, it's Miss Leigh. I'm here today to present with you this week's Sunday school lesson. Last week, I hope you caught the video that we put up on Facebook and on the website. That was last week's Sunday school lesson. So this is the next in the series. We're going to continue doing the short abbreviated version of our Sunday school lessons as long as we're not able to meet. So I hope you'll watch these and learn something new since you can't come to Sunday school. We really miss you guys and hope that you're staying safe and healthy and staying home and just enjoying this time with your family, because that's really what you need to be doing right now. So without further ado, let's get started on our lesson. Really quickly, I'm going to ask a couple of review questions because you know me, I have to ask questions. I really miss you not being here, guys, because you always answer them. So I'll just throw them out there. You can answer them virtually. All right. So last week's lesson, who can remember what it was about? Anybody? What? Who said that? Was that you? I'm just kidding. Yeah, last week's lesson was about the last plague. We're talking about Moses and his calling that God has put on him to go and free the Israelites or the Hebrews from slavery in Egypt. And we're in Exodus, the book of Exodus, second book of the Bible. And yeah, last week we talked about the very last plague. Moses had been begging, asking the Pharaoh to let the Hebrew people go, that God had told him that they needed to be free. And the Pharaoh had refused. And this very last plague that we talked about last week was the one that I think, it is totally what convinced the Pharaoh that it was time for the Hebrew people to go. And so, does anybody remember exactly what happened with the last plague? Anyone? Come on, think about it. Has to do with the door. Right. So, God instructed the Hebrews to paint their door frame with the blood of a lamb, and that would protect them, because that Passover was about to happen, that an angel was going to come through the territory, and anyone who did not have blood around their door frame, their firstborn sons, would be murdered, killed. They would die. And so the death angel came. He passed over every Hebrew house that followed that rule, and the Egyptians suffered great loss, including the Pharaoh. The Pharaoh lost his own son. And at that point, the Pharaoh said, go. So that's where we pick up today. So our story today comes from Exodus 14:1 through 15:21. So it's two books almost. Not two books, two chapters in Exodus, okay? So let's see. We talked about the last plague. We know that the blood of the lamb on the doorframe is what saved the Israelites' firstborns. So now we're going to move into kind of what happens after that. So the Pharaoh said, go. So they get up and they packed. And we talked about this a little bit last week. They packed their stuff and they got the heck out of town. And that's exactly what they did. It says that, what did God use to lead the people out of Israel? So I'm going to read this to you. This is actually in Exodus 13. And it says in verse 20, and they took their journey from Succoth and encamped in Etham in the edge of the wilderness. And Jehovah, which is God, went before them by day in a pillar of cloud to lead them in the way, and by night in a pillar of fire to give them light, that they might go by day and night. The pillar of cloud by day and the pillar of fire by night departed not from before the people. So the people are kind of confused. I mean, you've got this hundreds of thousands of people that were all like, where do we go? And so God showed them. During the day, he used a massive kind of cloud. I kind of think of it like not a tornado, but kind of probably looked like that maybe. I don't know. Nobody really knows. And then at night, as it got dark, they couldn't see the clouds. So God turned it into fire. And so this pillar of fire, they just followed it, and it led them out of the territory that they've been living in for so long. Kind of incredible, right? It said God had provided for Israel in incredible ways. He had sent Moses to help them. He had brought them through tremendous amounts of plagues. Think about all the plagues, including the one where they did not lose their firstborn sons. But all the plagues, they were safe. Okay, God brought them through that. And now he's freed them from slavery and was leading them out of slavery, the land of slavery. Would you think by now, I'm just curious, do you think that they trusted God now? Like, if that were you, would you be like, oh, God is taking care of me so well, I know he's going to take care of me now? Or would you be scared? I'm curious. Think about that for a second and answer it yourself. Would you be scared? You're leaving a country you've always lived in. You've never gone anywhere else in your whole life. Or would you know that God's going to take care of you? Because look at his track record. Look at everything he's done in the last few years to protect you. What would you do? Well, we're going to find out what happens with the Israelites. So now we're going to read Exodus 14. I'm using K2's phone because I'm using my phone to record. Hang on. Let me see if I can turn it. All right. Exodus 14. We're going to scroll down. You can read the whole chapter, but we're going to read verses 10, 11, and 12. And when Pharaoh drew nigh, the children of Israel lifted up their eyes, and behold, the Egyptians were marching after them. And they were sore afraid. And the children of Israel cried out unto God. And they said unto Moses, because there were no graves in Egypt, why hast thou taken us away to die in the wilderness, where thou dealt thus with us? I need to change this. Hang on a minute. We're going to change this to a better version. I did not know that K2 was reading such a fancy version. K2, I'm impressed. All right, let's go back and read this. All right. And now it's not highlighted. All right, give me just a second. All right, 14:10. Sorry, guys. All right, it says, as Pharaoh approached, the Israelites looked up and saw the Egyptians coming after him. This is better. This is English. This is the Holman Christian Standard, by the way. And they said to Moses, Is it because there are no graves in Egypt that you took us to die in the wilderness? What have you done to us by bringing us out of Egypt? Isn't this what we told you in Egypt? Leave us alone so that we may serve the Egyptians. It would have been better for us to serve the Egyptians than to die in the wilderness. So here they are. They've seen, they know that they're leaving. They're in this huge mass of people. They're leaving the land, and they turn around and look behind them, and guess who's coming? The Egyptians. The Pharaoh had said, let them go, but then he would, you have to understand, Pharaoh's whole kingdom balanced on having those slaves to build and do the things he needed. He knew that if he let them go, his kingdom would crumble. And if you're in my Sunday school class, we've talked about this. It was an ego thing for the Pharaoh. It was absolutely his ego standing in the way of letting them go. And so he had second thoughts. He said, y'all go, but then he had second thoughts, and he sent the Egyptian army after them to go get them. And so the Israelites turn around and see this Egyptian army coming after them. And instead of trusting God, like we just talked about, what did they do? What did they do? They flipped out. They totally panicked. I don't know. I can't say whether I would have done that or not, but the lesson in today is about trusting God. So hopefully we'll all learn a little bit about that. But they actually said, guys, just let me go back to Egypt. I'd rather be a slave than to die. And instead of knowing and remembering all the miracles that God had done in the last, with the plagues, and how he had saved their firstborn sons, and how real God was to them in those moments, instead of remembering that, they just said, I don't want this. I'd rather just be a slave. They took God's blessing and just threw it away, or they thought they were going to. But it says, Moses said to them, do not be afraid. Stand firm and see the Lord's salvation. He will provide for you today. For the Egyptians you see today, you will never see again. The Lord will fight for you, and you just must be quiet. So Moses pretty much says, guys, trust God. He's got this. He's got us. And so it says here, and I wonder, there's a couple of things that they highlight in this lesson I thought were really cool. It says, even though the Israelites had seen God do amazing things, they were afraid and they thought they were going to die. But God has shown his mighty power to them, and they should have trusted him. So they kind of let him down. When we have a problem or we feel scared, to be honest, right now in today's world, with everything that's going on, it is a little scary. And we talked a little bit about this last week. We are scared of this virus that's going around. We're scared about, if our moms and dads are going to be able to go to work and make the money that they need for us to have the life that we're used to. What's going to change? There's a lot of unknowns. But I ask each of you, just like with Moses asking the Israelites, have you stopped and just thought about all the good things God has given you in your life already? Do you think he would just rip that all away from you? He's not going to. He's going to take care of you. Now, it might be a little different than the idea you have pictured in your head. We're going to talk a little bit about that next week. Because the Israelites, once they got to the other side of where we're getting ready to go, they had a different picture and they got a little upset. But God will take care of us. It may not be what we see, but it will be what's best. So we can absolutely choose to trust God and know that he's going to take care of us. This says right here, God allowed things to look hopeless for the Hebrews. He wanted the people to know that there was nothing that they could do to save themselves. Israel would be saved because of God's great power alone. It's pretty awesome to know that we have a God that can take care of us and that we don't have to fix these problems, that we can pray, put them at God's feet, and he can fix them. So each night when you go to bed and you say your prayers, pray for our country, pray for our world, pray for the people who are sick, pray for protection for those who aren't, that we don't get sick, and pray that, that God will put us in the place he wants us when this is all said and done. Let's see. Think about what that must have been like for them in that moment, okay? Here they are. They're looking at this huge sea in front of them, okay? At this point, they're in front of the Red Sea. They've got an Egyptian army coming after them, and they're scared to death. Hey guys, sorry. My little phone bobble glitched out on me. I could not get it, it just froze up. So anyway, I stopped the camera and came back. All right, here we go. We're back in Exodus 14. This is verse 21. It says, then Moses stretched out his hand over the sea like that. And the Lord drove the sea back with a powerful east wind all that night and turned the sea into dry land. So the waters were divided. And the Israelites went through the sea on dry ground, with the waters like a wall to them on their right and their left. So they literally, the water opened up, the ground became dry, and then they had a wall of water on each side of them. And then they just went right through, okay? And then, guess who followed them? The Egyptians. And it says, in verse 26, that the Lord said to Moses, stretch out your hand over the sea so that the waters may come back on the Egyptians, on their chariots and horsemen. And so Moses stretched out his hand over the sea, and at daybreak the sea returned to its normal depth. While the Egyptians were trying to escape from it, of course, the Lord threw them into the sea, and the waters came back and covered the chariots and horsemen and the entire army of the Pharaoh that had gone after them into the sea. None of them survived. So God not only delivered the Israelites to the other side of the sea without even getting wet, he managed to get rid of the entire army that was chasing them so that there was no harm that would come to them. Pretty incredible. God rescued Israel. So there's a lot of lesson in this, guys. We've talked about trust. But the one thing I want you to remember is, yes, we need to trust God. But in all of the things that we trust God, the biggest thing we need to trust God with is that God wants to save us just like he saved the Israelites. So you're like, what? Me? Save me? I'm not a slave. I'm not stuck in Egypt. I don't have a Pharaoh's army chasing me. Well, no, you don't. But you are, if you're not a Christian and you're not saved, then you are kind of in slavery to sin. And unfortunately, unless you have asked Jesus into your heart, you're not going to experience that salvation and being saved. God saved Israel, and God wants to save you. God wanted to save me when I was a teenager, and he saved me. God saved Brother Kevin when he was in Bible school when he was a kid. God will save you if you've not had that happen yet. So you've got to trust him, though, and that's where that trust comes in. So it's a pretty incredible lesson. Yes, the Israelites, they whined, they complained, they got scared, they lost their trust, but God took care of them anyway. We're going to have moments where we don't trust, but if we come back to God and we just keep pushing through and do what he says, he will show us that he can take care of us. So I hope you'll do that. I hope if you've never trusted Jesus in your heart, that's the biggest thing you can ever do in your life. And I hope that you will let him, you know, just save you just like he did the Israelites, and let him bring you to a safe, wonderful place that you will see in, you know, in the future in our lessons, that God does take the Israelites eventually. There's a little life lessons along the way. We're going to talk about some of that next week. But yeah, so for today, I hope that you will have, you know, learned this lesson and done well with it. I would love for you to do some special activities. We're going to post those on the First Kids Connected page. If you are a parent of a child in 1st grade through 6th grade, please come join us there, and you can message me or Brother Kevin, and we can get you set up on that. But that's just a supplement. We've just added that so that Brother Kevin can post some silly, funny things. He's going to do that in just a little while. On several things are coming. We've got a lot planned. But so once you finish your Sunday school lesson, make sure you get connected over there. Make sure you're checking the church website frequently. Make sure you're checking the Facebook page for the church, and then get connected on the Kids Connect page until this is all over, so that we can stay in touch and have some fun. All right, guys, I hope y'all have a really great day, and I hope this lesson was a little bit helpful. I do my best, so have a great day. Bye.